And now Arsenal head into a very interesting period of the calendar where we're going to see a lot of different players starting a lot of different fixtures. And my eye goes to Gabriel Martinelli, whose next start, I'm guessing, will be the Hague away. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter. Yank Gunner, that's right. Gabriel Martinelli's trial at the Hague will be closely watched indeed. Gary Neville suggesting that he should be physically assaulted. And I mean, who could disagree with Gary Neville? He is the most prestigious broadcaster in all of football media. I would say Tempest in a teapot, but teapots are too big. It's like Tempest in a tea thimble. Martinelli apologized to Connor Bradley, which I think was the classy thing to do. Arne Slot dismissed it almost completely and said that Martinelli's a good guy. So the real news here is don't feed the trolls. So we will attempt not to do that. We do have great breaking news about Bukayo Saka, which we'll talk about. And we will discuss what was a wet and drab draw against Liverpool and why that means that all hope is lost or not, depending on how you see it, as we do enter an interesting period of the fixture calendar with cups runneth over, literally, the league and FA Cup on the agenda. What else is on the agenda is that we put out a Rob Holding interview that I think is fantastic. He was very candid. He was very fun to listen to. This is a man who can talk about winning FA Cups. This is a man who can talk about Arteta, Emery, Arsene Wenger, and some very famous players that he played with. And he did that quite beautifully. So if you want to listen to that, that's over on the Patreon. Rice50 is the code if you want to get all of that for a few quid. Paul and I did a new thing. We did power rankings, but instead of ranking them, we did fire emojis to rate the intensity of the dumpster fire at the clubs that we talked about. And a lot of fire emojis were used. It was a fun week of football. And as we can see, this is a league where anything can happen. The only problem is that last night, nothing happened. So it wasn't, I guess that is something, as anything. I don't know. We'll see what the guys think. They're here. I should introduce them because that is the kind of professional podcasting host that I am. And one of the men that is here is Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello, hello.
And Paul. Hello, Paz.
Woo!
Guys, before we talk about all the goals from last night, I want to get into quick reaction to news that is not a surprise to anybody, but which is just breaking, that Bukayo Saka has agreed a new deal. Clive, your thoughts on this player? Is he good, and should we be happy that he's staying at Arsenal?
Yeah, he's all right. He's sort of, he's quite good, isn't he? He's been stitched through the whole Arteta reign, isn't he, almost? You know, and you can almost see the progression of Arsenal through his progression, you know, and he's carried us for a long time, and now we're in a situation where he doesn't have to carry us anymore, but we all want a little bit more. That's the nature of the beast. It will be interesting to see his career development, positional development, potentially, and how he's used, and how when you get older, you want to take on more responsibility and what areas that develops into. So that would be one thing I'm sure they spoke about during the contract negotiations. You know, and so it'd be interesting to see, but I'd rather all that happen on our watch. And he's a fantastic player, fantastic ambassador for the club, even though from a playing perspective, plays really well for his country. You know, a really good thing. You know, at Arsenal, he is a really good thing. And for us people of our generation, we've got many players like that we look back to. But for the new generation of Arsenal fans, he is the man. He is it. Right? He is what people talk about. You know, Thierry Henry in the past, Ian Wright, etc. James Bergkamp. But this is the modern version of that. So fair play to him. Good luck. Enjoy the money. Keep playing. Keep healthy.
When you have stars at your club, you want to keep them there. When you make stars at your club, you especially want to keep them there. You don't want to lose star academy talents. And we've ensured that we will not be doing that. Paul, I don't want to go too far on this, but I'll poke the bear a little bit just to make this conversation more interesting than just, isn't he wonderful? He's so wonderful. Because we all think that.
Yeah. And it'd be terrible if we just left it like that. Elliot.
Wouldn't it though? Wouldn't it just? It is the case that he will now be, I think, the highest paid player maybe in the history of our club. He will be up there with the best players in the game, which is, I think, where he belongs. But I think at this stage now, moving into his true prime of his career, coming off his first sort of major injury challenge, and Mikel talking about how many minutes are in his legs at a young age and how that has to be managed, is it fair to say that the legacy of Bukayo Saka and the way he's thought of at the club and his chance to be one of those bronze statues outside the Emirates, let's get really big with this because this is what's all in front of him, is going to be determined over this next contract, that this will be his chance to step into that role of Ballon d'Or, bronze statue, all the trophies. This is his big moment. And I think we will start to also evaluate Bukayo, not as star boy, but as our star player. And that will be a fun journey to go on together.
Sure. That I was expecting worse from you. I don't know why, Elliot. But
whatever could have given you that idea.
But I think that's okay. I think that's the right amount of questioning what now. But like, I think that applies to him and the club and to Declan Rice and to Mikel Arteta and to this Arsenal squad generation coming through and where we're at. We have reached the point, like this was a season we came into, for example, where it started off with people saying if Arsenal don't win the league this season, they've completely screwed it up and Arteta's a bomb and all like it. And like, that's where we're at the moment. We've been too good building up to this season. We've done too well over the summer with the squad building to get away from that. And I think the same is true of Bukayo Saka. He's been too good. We've come too far together. He's too talented for his legacy not to be determined at this point by what he wins. We're at the what have you won stage, or what are you about to win? That's just how it is. And we might bridle at it and it might feel a little uncomfortable, but that's where we're at. Would any of us, forget outside the club, would any of us inside the club, if in 3 years' time we haven't won anything, think, oh, well, we did well and fair play to us and, everybody had a good run at it and everybody played to the best. No, we're at the, you got to win shit. Declan Rice is at the win shit stage. Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Saliba and Gabriel. What's more, if we don't win shit, they'll all go their separate ways over time and it'll all, like, there's only one way. We're at the point where it's up or it's a diaspora of talent leaving the club over the next few years, cashing in on whatever value they got left. So maybe I've gone a little darker than you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you blamed me for what I was going to do, and then you went ahead and did it way, way worse.
Look, can I say one thing? As you were talking. Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Okay, several other... Yeah. I've said several things. I want to say one thing more, which is, it's a weird old thing. He's like your refrigerator and somebody says, your appliances, have you updated them? And you're like, didn't I buy a fridge freezer thing 2 years ago? And then you think about it and it's like, no, actually, I've had that thing for 12 years. You know that thing with appliances where you think you just bought them, but they've actually been... I had to check his age to make sure he wasn't like 27, 28, because I'm seeing that annoyingly with players I thought were still 23 or 24. Good news, he's 24 and will be for a while. So we are literally entering primo territory for him for the next 3-4 years. He's hitting peak. And now we got to do stuff with it. So Good news.
Yeah. And if it's troubling to you seeing that players you thought were 22, 23 or 27, 28, wait till you find out about your own age. Because let me tell you, that creeps up on you too. It's good news. I don't think it's news that has to go too much further. I think those expectations I laid out, by the way, start now, because the expectations that we will go win this league and maybe other things. And we are looking for someone to step up at the attacking end of the pitch and be the leader, be the person who can get us the end product. That's going to be the story of this podcast, certainly. Bukayo Saka currently on 3 non-penalty goals. And I think, what are we looking at? Maybe 1 or 2 assists at this point in the season. So I am sure, the one thing, it feels like we've been very reluctant to want to put expectations on anyone, especially the players we like. I can tell you, the players themselves, I say I can tell you like I know, I suspect. The players themselves put expectations on themselves. And Saka with 4 goals and 3 assists, 3 non-penalty goals and 3 assists in the league, he will have big expectations for what he wants to do in the second half of this season. And I'm sure he can go out and achieve it. So I'm excited to watch that happen.
To be fair to yourself, Elliot, back in theatre camp when you'd be snapping on your tights to go on stage, you were reputedly very hard on yourself on your performances.
I had expectations I set expectations for numbers of high notes I could hit and things like that. So yeah, we all set expectations in our career. Clive, anything more on Saka, or shall we get into the game?
Let's get into the game. We can do this on other occasions. It's a happy day. There's work to do. Yeah. We all know what's ahead, right? So let's just focus on that.
Well, let me ask you that, because I think there was so much hope and expectation that we'd sort of set right some wrongs last night that I think the disappointment of a very drab draw in a game that just wasn't much of an occasion at all, a damp squib, literally was damp, very damp, more than damp, soaking, I think had people more down than the circumstance warrants, given the 6-point lead over a City team that, by the way, just had a comparably worse result at home the night before and hasn't shown any consistency themselves. So now that you've had a sort of night's sleep on it, as you wake up, still super frustrated with the missed opportunity, or leaning more towards encouraged by the position we find ourselves in after 21 games?
Yeah, sometimes you just know a night's not your night sort of thing. And I was nervous about the game all day. And the weather was really bad, right? And I thought, you know what, I had a chance to meet some people before the game, but I was soaking wet. I thought, we'll just get to the ground early. And as soon as I got there, I thought, this is not going to be the night people think it's going to be. You know, it was biblical what's happening, and I thought, let's just see how this game goes. And so, yeah, and the game started, and you see how Liverpool set up. And see, you have to remember one thing about Liverpool. They are a very proud club. And they see us one of the mortal enemies. And they're not going to turn up at our place and really decide to go gung-ho and leave spaces for us to run through. Don't you think they watched Declan Rice at Bournemouth running through the midfield and slotting cutbacks? Don't you think they watched the Aston Villa game and saw what Odegaard and Zubimendi did in that game? They're not going to allow that to happen. You know, they're going to play double fullbacks on both sides almost, double defenders, and make sure we can't go into wide areas and say, if you're going to beat us, you go past Van Dijk and Konate, who are pretty good when they're switched on. You know, is that fair? You know, and then so I didn't have the expectations everyone else had. I didn't have it. I know who Liverpool are, and they turned up, which I knew they would do. Their next game is the one to watch. Can they turn up for the next game? Because I knew they'd turn up for the Arsenal game. You know, and so the prize on offer was 8 points, and we ended up with 6 points. And I found that for half time, I came up to go and get a drink, and I could hear the commentary saying, you know what, it may not be the worst thing to get a draw today. And I thought, you know what, that was in the commentary at Arsenal at half time. And sometimes you just have to accept it. If you want to go for the nuances of the game, that's fine. We can do that. I'm sure we will do shortly. But not every game is going to just turn. Sometimes you can prepare all week, and then you can look at the warm-up. It's all bright and sharp. And you go out there and play. You can't find each other with a torch. And you can't explain it. You know? And then it's those moments, how you see those moments off, is it really matters. And you don't want to see those moments off with a defeat. If you go back to the Villa game, you know, we lost in the last second. And you see how that hurt the team. And people were saying, oh, it's only one defeat, blah, blah, blah. But in the core of this team, not being beaten is really important to them. You know, and let's be honest, we've lost 2 games this season, and they've both been late goals. One 82nd, 83rd minute, and one in the 92nd minute. And that's in the core of the group, right? So although it's boring for some people, for me, I'm so much in the mantra, if you can't win it, you make sure you don't lose it. You know, and I will say there's been 3 instances of last minute botch ups that could have gone our way that would maybe taken us another 6 points in our bin. The Timber getting in front of Gyökeres at Chelsea away, the Merino chance at Sunderland away, and last night's header, Gabriel on the back post. Just give me a couple of those, right? And we could be starting booking hotels. I mean, seriously, that's how tight the margins are. But sometimes you just got to take it.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, other than Newcastle away, I don't think we have a late winner this season. Not one that comes to mind, but we have quite a few late gut punches. Liverpool, Sunderland, Chelsea, Villa. You know, it is the case that you don't want too many of those to go against you. You start to build a narrative. Paul, before we get into the granularity of this, like, I don't know if the game is being analyzed completely accurately, because I think there is a case of the last thing you saw being the thing that you take away. And this was, gosh, it's weird how cliches sometimes are cliches for a reason. A game of 2 halves. These were 2 different football matches, the first half and the second half, completely different. So let's talk about the first half for what it really was, and not what the narrative about it is, knowing the result. The first half for me was a case of Arsenal really imposing themselves on a Liverpool team that loaded the team with midfielders that wanted to get really compact and see if we could open them up. And my biggest takeaway is Mikel's biggest takeaway. From the areas we got into with the crosses and cutbacks we generated, we simply did not find Arsenal feet or heads enough. And this is a game that I think that has to be looked at. The spacing and the way we address getting into the box, arriving into the box on these final moments. So the first half for me, the midfield wasn't even a part of it. If you look at XG buildup from Scott's great numbers and things like that, it's Gabby and Saliba, top of the charts, and Timber. The ball was on the center back's feet. We were getting through balls into Timber. We were getting Saka in behind. We were getting the byline. We couldn't get on cutback. So what do you identify as sort of the diagnosis for why we couldn't find end product in the first half despite real territorial dominance?
Because Liverpool set out to frustrate. This was a frustration game, and they did it in two different ways, first half, second half.
Let's stay with the first half for now.
Yeah. And so for the first half, like, I think they started out actually a bit like the second half. They had the diamond in midfield. They were dropping verts in. And then after a while, we kind of got a bit more control, a bit more of the upper hand. And they said, okay, well, there's nothing in between. We're not going to do a mid block. We're not going to fight you in midfield. You got the ball. You're knocking it around a little bit. We're just dropping back. So they had their two fullbacks in position. So there'll be a Gyökeres conversation, but this is the one, like, I'm not super high on how things are going with Gyökeres at the moment, but I will say this about this game. They literally planted their two centre-backs around Gyökeres and said, okay, Arsenal, show us what you can do around the sides. And so I'm not giving him a pass because I'm not giving anybody a pass here. And I was pretty frustrated with him at the end of this game. But this was a game, I would say, if you had Havertz or another good option, you play that other good option because the way he likes to play plays completely into their hands. And why that matters is it nullifies our outlet down the middle, which means Saka's got to do some absolute magic from his side because he's not going to be able to get it to Gyökeres. He's not going to be able to cut it back to him because Gyökeres is not Havertz, and he's not going to travel outside of that defensive block from the two centre-backs. So they're like, okay, you got the ball, we will drop back, and they have their midfields down the centre. You're not going to get through the centre. You're not going to play through the centre. You're not going to play across the centre. You're not going to switch it across. You basically got the wings, and they're like, there's the ball. See what you can do. We were dropping Rice or Zubimenti into a back line of Saliba and Gabriel so that those two guys could push forward into midfield and advance forward. And oh look, they're playing in midfield. Saliba's way up the pitch. Like, they just let you advance up the pitch. It was like a spooky movie where you walk into the scary house and you are met by nothing. You are unopposed, but the music is going. And so we could advance up the pitch into position and then see what we could do from the edges. And it really wasn't until the end of the first half we got some triangling going on the right-hand side with Saka. So I think I was more frustrated than other folks at the end of the first half. I liked the last 5-7 minutes, but up to that, I think Liverpool was super comfortable and we were super frustrated.
Yeah. Mikel said, quote, we were much closer to that with the amount of situations and spaces that we arrived into. Normally you have to pick someone in the box and it's a goal. The movement was there. The arrival was there. The players were there. There were 2 or 3 that they come across and we need to occupy a space that we didn't occupy to score the goal. But in many other occasions, the situation was there. But against Villa, we were excellent against that. And every time we do that, that's why you win those big matches. And today we missed that. Clive, what's your diagnosis of the attacking dynamic and the inability to get on the end of those threatening cutbacks and crosses?
Yeah, we just arrived in the box. We got too keen and got there too early, right, on occasions. And we didn't... There's a coaching thing you do where you try to arrive in a triangle, if you can, in the box, and we were just a bit silly.
That near post penalty spot, back post?
Yeah, sort of thing, and just make sure you can get 3 lines if you can. And You can see a couple of them, even Martinelli in the second half, that he just was on the wrong line. And so we're just not smart in the box. And it's a wee thing. Obviously, number 9 is going to get some stick where he stands, but it's a wee thing. I think Liverpool had a game plan in all their midfielders in the team, and we had a situation where we had to decide how we wanted to play. And the real issues out wide, as Paul said, we had to get to those people quickly and really challenge them. Our best forward on the day is probably Timber. I rewatched it this morning, and he had a really good forward game. Do I want that to be the case? Well, that was the only space they gave us, was that channel between Gyökeres and Van Dijk, and it all landed with him. And we didn't get a lot of composure, shall we say, although he was one of our best players, if not the best player on the day.
Can
I ask you a question about that? Do you mind if I ask you something? Yeah. I find it weird, and this is what's hard, right? Especially when you're not at the ground and you can't see the whole shape of the team, right? You only see what the camera shows you. Is there a suggestion that Timber should be in lane 5 and Sack should be in lane 4? Sack should be the one running between center back and full back, arriving on those kind of balls, whereas Timber should be outside him. It's more often Timber arriving into that space in this game than Saka. Do you find that odd? Is that something that could be flipped or no?
Yeah, mate. I've done my midfield thing and where people should stand, and I don't want people thinking I've got an agenda. But the way I see it is, you have to look at what's the best version of Arsenal so far, and it's not this version, right? So, and I personally don't like Timber being in the high line continuously for the game. I don't. I think we've got more attacking players that can do that job, right? So against Aston Villa, the same thing happened. They were running through us. We flipped it. Odegaard went higher. Timber went lower. Game settled down. Odegaard had a fantastic second half. Once we got hold of the game, because first goals really matter for Arsenal Football Club.
Yes, they do. Paul's pointed that out.
And I have never listened to my drunken post-Wolves instant reaction, but I know I said first goals matter. And that is still a problem for us. And without Big Gabby, I worry about that. And so basically in the Villa game, we flipped it around, and once we flipped around, it settled down. And in this game, we did exactly the same thing. Timber was high, and on occasions we then flipped Odegaard high. I personally want to see more attacking players in the last line rather than fullbacks with muscles. That's just my personal preference. I'd rather fullbacks in muscles be there to stop the transition. I'm not saying I'm right, but I want to keep my fullbacks out the centre forward's nose to stop him head goals in against Chelsea. I'd rather him be there to do those jobs, to progress, get around, support, underlap, but not be there too early. And that's my bias. And I've said it many times on the instant reaction, etc. So I'm not liking that balance at the moment. But it works on occasions. We had encouraging moments there. So it's about what you want to see and what you like. And it's all under instruction. Personally, I don't like it. I don't like it when Ben White does it. When Ben goes the other way, maybe. I don't like it. I know if it's Calafiori now, that's a different ball game, because that guy's got something else, right? He arrives into space, he carries into space, and when he's in areas, in attacking areas, he looks like an attacker. So if I'm going to set that person, that fullback free, it's him. Maybe because of the fact he's not playing, we're seeing Timber a lot more in those roles. So we'll just put that down to a coaching balancing thing. And so the space of the game was really in the wide areas, and we had Trossard, who was really affected by the yellow card. He played proper angry, right, and was on the edge and being ganged up on by Liverpool. And so he wasn't focused on his one-on-ones. Saka was great in his one-on-ones for about 55 minutes. But the game became destabilised with substitutions, particularly in Cappy's substitution, and that destabilised us and took our emphasis away from controlling the game. Then we thought, okay, we need to control the game in a different way, And so for me, I worry about our creation. I do. I don't think we're having enough creative people high enough. I don't think we're brave enough. I don't think courageous enough to receive the ball, take a kick, get a free kick, change momentum. I don't think we were risky enough. I thought we lacked a bit of courage in this game. But that is okay, by the way. Not every game you will feel it. You won't feel yourself every game. That is okay. It's what you don't want to compound errors by taking stupid risks, by doing dumb stuff, conceding a goal, and suddenly having to come back from one goal down. It just wasn't our day. It was very flat. And I sent a tweet out before the game, and people probably laughed at me. But when I got there, I sort of said, one of our superpowers is ball speed. That is something that we do really, really well. And for the moment I got into the stadium, I went, we could be in a bit of trouble. I don't know how it looked to you guys on TV, but the ball was moving slow. It felt like a slow game. And that's just the nature of the evening, the night. Please don't say in the comments, Clive, are you blaming the rain? It's the same for both teams, but they weren't quick neither, were they?
Ooh, he's having to go at the rain now.
Yeah, they weren't quick moving the ball neither, were they?
Forget it was raining.
Well, how do you move a block around? You move a block around with ball speed
Clive,
and
to
ball
your
carrying, right? So, and they were limited on both angles.
It's an explanation why both teams really generated almost nothing. This was
Exactly.
a 0.6 to 0.3 XG game. And the one thing I think we should bear in mind, we played Liverpool twice and City once. I think those are the two best teams in the league, clearly, besides Arsenal.
Yeah.
And they have been low event, low block, no shot type games. City got one shot worth all their XG. They sat in their box super deep the whole game. Liverpool at Anfield, no events on either side of the pitch. Arsenal at the Emirates against Liverpool, again, low event game. These teams don't want to give each other things. Now, you could argue that that is a reflection of conservatism, but that's just the reality of these games. And I will point out, by the way, there are people that are going to say, well, the second half, and we're going to get to that because I agree with them. But it's like, we are being chased by Manchester City. Manchester City, did you watch the Chelsea game? They're 1-0 up. They literally don't come out of halftime. They don't play the second half. And they get chinned at the death, and it's a 1-1 draw. Did you see City against Brighton? Until Brighton equalized, they were sleepwalking all over the pitch. So I know we're very concentrated on Arsenal and we focus on ourselves, but these other clubs are doing it too. These are crowded periods of fixtures. There's a lot of weird results. There's a lot of results going in very strange ways. You have a lot of crazy games. Look at the Leeds-Newcastle game, just totally bizarre. But I do think that City are doing some of the very same things that are frustrating us. So we have to keep that in mind. Now, we're going to get to the second half, but just for the people that maybe think, let's not overplay what our dominance was in the first half. It didn't result in shots that show up on the stat sheet, but I want to just call out some moments. Do you guys mind if I do that just for a second? So in the 10th minute, Saliba plays Timber in behind. Saliba was brilliant in the first half with some of the balls he was playing in behind. The cross is really poor. It goes right to Alisson, but he's at the byline unmarked. In the 11th minute, there's a high turnover for Arsenal. The ball goes in the box. Leo gets a shot off, but he doesn't really catch it. In the 12th minute, in the 17th minute, Rice has a sensational cross to Timber. He heads it back across the goal, and it's not met by anyone. Again in the 17th minute, Saka gets all the way to the box, past Gyökeres, all the way to the 6-yard box. Cut back, isn't met by anyone. It's just behind Zubamendi. In the 20th minute, Saliba gets Timber running in behind again. The cross goes over everybody. In the 28th minute, Timber has a brilliant back post header from a cross that's just not on target. Leo has a shot deflected for a corner. And it was right after Frimpong had gone down in the box when he stepped on Nketiah's foot. Following that corner, Rice has a brilliant cross into the box and no one attacks it. I think it was one of the moments where people were a little frustrated with Gyökeres. In the 44th minute, Timber is in behind. Gyökeres cuts it back to Rice at the top of the box. Rice takes a shot. Leo sticks a leg out, and if he gets anything on that, that goes in. And in the 45th minute, we had one of the most beautiful passages of play we put together in a while in a central space. Do you remember it? Odegaard to Rice to Saka. Ping, ping, ping. Combination play. 1, 2, 3. Odegaard, Rice, Saka. Right in the center. Saka's in the center of the box. Shot gets blocked. Doesn't quite get it away. All of that in the first half. None of that leading to clear chances, but all opportunities for clear chances. So some days, those cutbacks, those crosses, those shots, Leo's leg does make contact and it goes past Alisson, or that cutback to Zubamendi does find him. We're going to talk second half because it wasn't good, but I think the first half, given the way Liverpool came out to play, Clive, and given what we did generate, is a case of just missed connections more than it is poor play. That's just kind of how I see it.
Yeah, everything you said there is perfect. And but what facilitated that? And it was our ownership of the territory, right? We pushed them back, we created things, and we created second effort attacks. In fact, there was a couple of moments there. There was one Saka offside. Do you remember the one on the inside channel in the first half? We'd already skinned them. I tell you, lads, that moment was critical because they were dizzy. We didn't get enough second events, right? But second waves, they were dizzy. If he could have gone onside, he'd have just no touch turn, round the corner, side foot across the box goal. You know, we had the people there. So with second efforts, what you have people already in position. So if you can win it back quickly, stop them getting to the first two passes, win it back quickly, and then go again, that's when you find the spaces. And I thought Liverpool did really well in buying fouls on exits, slowing the game down on exits, When we talk about the slowing the game down bit, I'm ready for you on that one, Elliot. Slowing the game down on exits. Grab and Birch do really well travelling out of the area. But they also had an exit strategy in Frimpong, who I thought had an outstanding game as an exit strategy for them. They could woof the ball to him, and whether he won it or not, it got them territory, got them breathing space, allowed them to recover. And so I thought we did well. We owned the territory, but I didn't feel we needed a break, a lucky goal, not say lucky goal, an imperfect goal, and we didn't quite have it today because I thought we were overeager on cutbacks in particular.
Paul, a couple of things you wanted to jump back in there?
No, look, I think that's all right. When you look at the first half, there are opportunities there. It's really kind of head of steam stuff. Did we, with all of that possession, create the kind of opportunities and the jeopardy that we were looking for? I think the team will have gone in at halftime thinking, we were getting there towards the end of the first half, guys. We need to do more of that, speed that up. Like, the real disconnect is the second half.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And that's really where this game went. We came at the start of the second half. I think we have now been conditioned to Arsenal coming out of the second half and upping their game, doing more of what works, and what was working just disappeared, left from us.
Yeah.
And for me, it is a disconnect. It didn't make sense to me. We came out in the second half and their same setup worked differently for them. They were playing with 4 midfielders, not 3. And in the second half, we really felt that.
Yes.
And they were finding each other and we were not finding our players. So we were stuck in, and there wasn't a huge amount of threat outside of pinging it to Frimpong on the counter for them. But in possession, they didn't lose possession. When we had possession, we couldn't string the passes together in the second half. And so it was basically a reversal of situations, even if tactically it was a little different.
Clive?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? So one of the shouts is when you win it back, first two many times in the second half, we were just clearing it to them, right? And they squeezed us up, right? So we decided, well, you know what? You're not threatening us. We can manage this. It got frustrating in the ground because what we then started to do was make mistakes in possession. Yeah. And on our edges, Frimpong took Miles for a dance a little bit on that side for 10, 15 minutes or so. And that destabilized us a bit and maybe caused a few thrashy sort of clearances that weren't going to a tiring centre forward. And then we went another direction. And for me, it was always about the wide players in this game. Hindsight peak, we just needed 2 raw wingers in this game. That's what we needed. And say, okay, you've got Gakpo who played wide because he's a better defender than Wirtz. They weren't going to put Wirtz out wide. So they hid him in the centre and made it an overload in there. And played 2 right backs, basically, who got a bit of legs about them. And so they knew the areas that we need to focus on those areas because the 2 twin towers are really smart in there. And they out-game planned us. But to do that, they had to give up box threat. And they walk off the pitch with no shots on target for the first time since the French Revolution, right? So, and so they've got, to do what they needed to do, they had to give something up. To do what we wanted to do, we had to give something up maybe a bit quicker, you know? And that's the way of the game. And that's just the tactical side of the game. And they did it well. They kept another thing they did well earlier was they stopped us getting set pieces because what they did, they showed us inside and they really doubled up in those areas. So we couldn't get the calls like we normally do. We couldn't go on the outside. And when we do go on the outside, we cut it back and we missed the cutback opportunities. And so they did well. And you got to accept it.
I think also people are thinking about the Liverpool this season in total, but it is worth noting over the last run of, this is 9 games unbeaten for them, but over that run and since Salah's come out of the team, they haven't been very good, but they've been way less open and vulnerable.
They haven't lost since Salah's come out of the team, Elliot.
Yeah, right.
Haven't lost.
And I mean, Phil said something really interesting on the instant reaction, and I think it's actually really intelligent. His stock falling was Hugo Ekitike because he said that injury helped them. Bringing an extra midfielder in was exactly the recipe for them to ride out this game. It helped them ride out the first half, but in the second half, it helped them come to grips with it. Because the funny thing is, for as much of the balls they had in the second half, we'll come to the second half. They had no threat. Again, I mean, no shots on target, as we've already covered, and 0.3 expected goals in the whole
Couple
game.
of free kicks and Frimpong streaking down the wing. That was their attack.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and we'll talk about the Miles part of it in a bit, because I do think that's worth a chat. There are a couple of individuals we want to talk about. Gyökeres we'll get on to now, but I do just want to say two things. One, the Bradley chance, like Saliba and Raya get a bit of a mix-up. They both want to snuff out a situation. It's a nothing moment, right? It just so happens that Raya's kick goes right to Bradley, and Bradley gets off a very good chip. He's a bit unlucky, and we're a bit fortunate, but it also would have been a very harsh way to concede a goal based on how that was going. The one thing I do think impacted the first half, and maybe it's just me. So guys, I'm a nervous football watcher. I am sure that will surprise you to hear. The Leo yellow card early fundamentally changed how I experienced that first half, because every time Liverpool had the ball on that side of the pitch, I was terrified that Anthony Taylor wanted to send him off. And Leo wasn't doing anything to help my blood pressure, because he was chirping at Anthony Taylor. There was one throw-in that they gave to Liverpool that Leo thought should be ours, and he was remonstrating with Taylor so ferociously. Then there was the VAR check for a penalty on Leo, where he kind of cuts across and barges. If that's a VAR, if the VAR gives that as a penalty, which I don't think it is, by the way, but if it's given, if Taylor gives it, it's going to stay. And it's a second yellow for Leo when he's off. So I do think there was a little bit of hesitance on the left-hand side as a result of that yellow. And it played into it. Paul, just before we get to Gyökeres and then the second half, is that my emotional read of the game? Or do you think the Leo yellow had any impact on the left-hand side and the dynamic of how we played while he was on the pitch?
Yeah, not much. So I'm the perfect counterbalance to that, because you were nervous and you were like eagle-eyed on it. I forgot he had a yellow card.
Oh, gosh, I did.
So I just watched it like a game.
Do you not remember Leo getting a second yellow against Manchester City for kicking the ball away? There's previous for being worried here.
What season was that? Like, this is a different season, right?
Yeah, nothing
We've
could go wrong.
We've got different vibes. We put out a different vibe. We're getting different decisions. So no, I wasn't feeling that way. Look, there might be something in that. I would much more say that he had to be a little more careful, a little more circumspect in some of his defensive action, but not really. I don't think that was the big difference. The reality was we had the machinery on the right-hand side to create triangles as the game went along, and we played to our right-hand side, because the left-hand side, I mean, who was going to triangle on the left-hand side? It was Leo, and Rice kind of has to sit back, and Hincapié is the fullback. I think that as the first half went on in particular, they sat deeper and deeper, and there wasn't much for Trossard on his side. All the action was going to be, you got Timber, you got Odegaard, you got Saka on the right-hand side, you got Saliba, like all the ball players were on the right-hand side, and I think that's why we saw more action there. So you could be right, but my eyes didn't go to that, because I didn't totally forget he had a yellow card, but like, I just don't have our players don't get second yellows in general. Oh, Jesus, I've done it again, haven't I? Sorry, guys. So far, due to good luck and fortune and kindness, that has not been the story of our season this season. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm not jinxing anything.
I want to get on Gyökeres in the second half. Miles Lewis-Skelly's performance. I think there's some substitution questions to be asked to Mikel, so it's all stuff I want to cover. But Clive, do you have anything on any of that we just went through, including Leo's yellow card?
Yeah, but Anthony Taylor done his thing. The other game that I didn't, the other game where I felt we were a little bit tentative was another Anthony Taylor game at Chelsea away, and this game had a lot of similarities. I think we played tentatively, and we were a little bit conscious of the counter, so we took the counter away by dropping away, and Anthony Taylor was getting a bit of stick in the ground, but I sort of felt it wasn't as bad as the Chelsea one. You know, we were just looking for something to do. People were angry at some of the situations.
Low event game, you're going to start to look other places like the referee.
And that's why the Martinelli stuff was blown up today, right? So,
of course.
And so, yeah, he wasn't as egregious as he was against Chelsea, but I'm with you, Elliot. It was on my mind immediately when Trossard got that booking. I thought, here we go again. You know, we've got these conditions where people are going to be sliding around. Don't tell me we're going to be on the precipice of another card for both teams, by the way. Because that's what you do for your first one, then what's going to happen thereafter. But he settled down. He settled down. I don't think it was a good Leo game, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah,
I don't think it was. And he has these games, but I've got used to them now. But he's a really good player. He's literally our player of the month. So he will come back, and there's lots of games coming up where he can come back again.
Super quick, then. I know I keep saying what I want to get to, but I forgot to ask you about this. I don't know if it was Liverpool's intention or just how the game played out, but it feels like the best version of Arsenal is when one of Rice or Odegaard or both is very prominent in their on-ball contribution.
Yeah.
And neither of those players really influenced this game in the way we're used to. I think some of that in the first half was how deep Liverpool were and how happy they were to let Saliba and Gabby dictate the play rather than Rice and Odegaard. But even in the second half, neither of them really had a good game. Neither were prominent in this game. And do you agree that that's a diagnosis for a problem for Arsenal, and that's something that in this game either Liverpool had a solution for, they were both just off it? What do you think about that? Because neither Rice nor Odegaard were particularly prominent or effective in this game.
They got marked, Elliot. So why was Saliba and Gabriel able to travel out? Because they were literally the spare man. So they literally said to you, you can have it. We're going to mark every one of your targets. So let's see how far you want to risk it. Unfortunately, we've got two centre-backs that are quite good on the football, so we could have some form of ball progression. But we had to take risks to do that. So to take risks, Declan Rice, naturally what he does is he covers the gaps that are behind him. And what does that do? That stops us getting enough people up the pitch to really affect their last line. So we were out tactics, mate. So we were out tactics. So we had to decide how we're going to respond. And we took our time responding. We can be criticised for being a little bit cautious. But over the marathon of a 38-game league season and a 60-game season, this is one of 60. And I can just about wear it. I can wear this a lot more than the Wolves at home performance. A lot more. Because that really concerned me, because no one else is drawing at home to Wolves that we're competing with. So that was a really scary moment. This one I can just about get away because Liverpool showed their pride and they worked really hard to wait for a mistake to get a goal to put us under pressure. I can just about wear it. Just about.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on to some Gyökeres stuff, some second half stuff and things like that. But you know what? It is probably a good time to have a breath mint, catch your breath, and learn what brands are going to change your life. And these are those brands. Okay, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Paul, the Gyökeres thing, I think, falls into the category of the kind of analysis I tend to dislike, in the sense that every performance, people are trying to sum up the player as a whole, or their season as a whole, or their career as a whole. Like, so if the performance is good, it's like, see, this is a good player. If the performance is bad, it's like the player is crap and not good enough for our level. And I just don't think it leads to great analysis when you try to summarize the entirety of a player in every game you're analyzing. And we analyze every game multiple times. So what I'd like to try to do, and I know it will be hard to, is not ask you what you think of Viktor Gyökeres, but what you think of this Viktor Gyökeres performance and whether striker was notably an issue for you in this particular game.
Yeah, it was. And in many ways, it's not so much that he did anything bad or good, in that he didn't really get to do anything at all. This was the game you don't want Viktor Gyökeres in. There's probably 5 or 6 games a year in the season where you say, not super appropriate to Gyökeres' skill set of being central. Like, they have two. What we really wanted was Van Dijk and Konate moving around the pitch, chasing people, not knowing who to mark. And this was a game of great comfort for them, where they looked competent and strong and tall. And they just stood where Viktor Gyökeres was going to stand. And had they been marking Kai Havertz, they would have been marking fresh air. And this was one of those games where maybe we didn't see this coming, but I think we did. Arteta said they played the game he expected them to play. And they just basically, we had a big gap. They pushed us so that we had to feed it wide to Saka, wide to Trossard. So the distance from Saka and Trossard to Gyökeres when we were in attack mode was acres. And he was isolated, and they said, can you connect the very outside of the pitch to somebody on the inside of the pitch? And more often than not, the answer was no. So I think it's a tough game to give any kind of a Viktor Gyökeres read on, because he was neutralized. It was probably not the right game for him. I'm not giving him a free pass. It would be nice if he did. Like, he had one moment I can remember where he breaks to the right hand in the first half, breaks to the right hand to the box and cuts it back. And like, that was good. I'm like, okay, that's what happens when you move around a bit, but that's not his normal game. When was the last time we saw him peeling out to the left wing and streaking up the wing, kind of into that channel out there? He's been more and more relegated to central striker, up against the centre backs, and he's kind of got into a bit of a rut, and this was the worst game in a sequence of games for him to be given that role, because he was literally standing between Konate and Van Dijk, who weren't having to move very much because they saw our attacks coming. So, but look, there's a lot to be said. You kind of ruled off where this conversation would go, which is the bigger picture, Viktor Gyökeres. So constrained to the smaller picture, was pretty frustrated with things around him. I don't know that he was bad in this game. It just wasn't the right game for him. And we got nothing out of it. We could have had almost anybody in that spot in that game.
I mean, it's his 7th game now in the Premier League of his 18 or 19, whatever it is, that he had no shots. That's sort of the first thing you look for in your strikers. Did you get any shots? Because he was a shot monster in Portugal. And when he can get shots, we know he has the ability to shoot accurately and powerfully from virtually any angle. But the first step is getting shots. He's not getting shots. He has the fewest touches of any player to log more than 1,000 minutes in the league. And, Billy Carpenter, whose analysis I like a lot, made the point that he notices him dissolving to the back post a lot. And Billy said, I've watched over 70 Viktor Gyökeres goals, and I don't think I've ever seen him score from the back post, and he's not good at heading. So it's like, is he making...
He's not going to get anything against Konate. Like, that's a very salient point. Yeah. Konate and Van Dijk are going to give him nothing aerially in this game when we're so wide with Saka and Trossard. Yeah. So, like, they had our number. And there is a case for saying, hey, put in Merino. You'll lose. In hindsight, you'd have lost nothing, and he would have given us something else in midfield from time to time, and he would have had verticality and headers. And so
I want to make one point about Mikel on Gyökeres. I don't think Mikel is fibbing. I think he rates what Gyökeres is doing. And the reason I say that is I've seen Mikel Arteta be critical of his players. I've seen him say some stuff about Martinelli when he misses a shot, saying we had chances he should take. I've seen him be critical of Emil Smith-Rowe. I've seen him have some critical comments about players. He continues, maybe because he just can't afford to lose him emotionally, but he continues to be very supportive of Gyökeres. And following this game, he said, quote, he was in great positions. Sometimes the ball didn't arrive. And as I said, there were situations. Normally we go into the 6-yard box that was almost with the ball at the feet. And normally that's a goal, or you pick somebody and you score. We didn't do that. And that's the thing today we have to improve, apart from the things that we did in the second half that probably wasn't at the standard that we are used to. So just that stuff and all the second half. Clive, your thoughts on this Gyökeres performance? Because I will say this too. It's not like Gabriel Jesus is looking brilliant in his cameos. He's been out of football almost 2 years. So we're going to need one of these guys, and it might need to be Viktor Gyökeres.
We need him. And so I know we need him and we wouldn't be where we are without him. And that's the truth. We wouldn't be anywhere near it. Right? So, and even though he's struggling at the moment, and he is struggling, do you remember when he signed? Do you remember that video when he signed and he's in the car and Martin Odegaard sends him a video to welcome him to the club, and he turned around, he's got that serious sort of Scandinavian face on. So all I need from you is assists. And at that moment in time, I thought, we've got the right guy with the right mentality. I don't really care how you play, but if you've got that mentality and self-confidence about what you do when it comes to kicking the football in the net, that's exactly what this team has missed. So I was thinking, can you imagine him having that conversation today? Do you think he's got the same confidence and the same arrogance today as he did before he signed? I think what's happened, he's come to the league and he's found out that there are different levels, and he's maybe doubting himself a little bit, and he's putting himself into areas where he won't receive the ball. And sometimes our players are not quite trusting him to hold the ball. That's a general comment, because in this game last night, it wasn't a game for that type of centre forward. It was a blocked out middle game, and he was probably the worst player to actually play that game, you know. And but let's talk about it more general, because we didn't win. The Gyökeres conversation has come up a little bit more aggressively. But if I think back to his better moments have come away from home, when maybe we are a little more space, and he can do his thing a little bit more. But my worry is that we're losing him psychologically. And that was the exact reason why I wanted him over Sesko, because I thought he'd have a better mentality. And Sesko's younger, maybe lacked a bit of presence. He's just completed his first 90 minutes this season. And so, but you could see in that first 90 minutes, I know it was only Burnley, but there's a level of physicality and athleticism and separation that we're not seeing with Viktor Gyökeres at the moment. But we have seen in the past. So it's gone. It's disappeared. And that's a worry. And he felt a little bit disconnected in this game. I have a tendency, with the way I am and the way I look at football, I don't like stopping on people, because I always feel there's something we can do. There's always something we can get from that player if we work with them and rebuild them confidence-wise to get them moving. And the base of his game is movement and repeat sprint. And that was not a movement repeat sprint game. And he certainly wasn't showing early enough to receive those balls, those exits. And so it was not a good night in a game that was really a tough watch, and a tough watch tactically. It was one of the games, I love going to the Emirates. I love it. And, every time feels like Christmas, right? But that one didn't feel good to me from the moment I got there, the moment watching the game. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy what was on offer. I felt an edginess around the game, not because of the result, because Brighton are giving us breathing space, right? If we had lost it, we still would have been 5 points ahead, right? So Liverpool are 14 points behind us. So they were playing for different things what we were playing for. I didn't enjoy what I saw. We didn't adapt to the game was on offer quickly enough. But I'm not also upset, And I looked at the manager's press conferences afterwards, and he wasn't upset, because he looked at the fact that we got 16 points out of 18, and we got the most points over the Christmas period as a whole. And that's how the pros look at it. They look at it in blocks, and we have achieved what we wanted to achieve in this next block of games. And the next block of games, Elliot, will give us clarity around the squad, because now we're playing 4 competitions away from home, and we're going to have to rotate. And we need to, I think we're coming to what this game told me is that I think we need to re-find a new balance again. And I think this next set of games will help us find that new balance. And people are going to have to show their hand now, been waiting to play. This is your chance to change how this team looks, because I still feel we have not reached our final form, not even close. But by the end of these next 3 weeks, I think we will be having different discussions.
Yeah, I mean, we'd probably also have a little bit less anxiety around Gyökeres if he was one of him and Kai, and they could play horses for courses. And Kai had 7 goals already, or Saka had 8. But our leading goal scorer is Leo with 5. After that, it's Rice and Eze with 4. Nobody else has more than 3. There's just no one that's taken up the mantle of being a reliable goal scorer. Kai hasn't been able to get fit. And by the way, there's another reason why we have to be careful about being ready to throw dirt on Viktor Gyökeres. Gabriel Jesus spent 2 years out of football. There's only so much football I think we can really expect him to play. And he also looks a bit rusty. I don't think he has looked particularly good. I know he scored a great goal already, and that counts. But he hasn't looked great. Kai isn't fit. And Viktor Gyökeres is. And by the way, Viktor Gyökeres is our leading non-penalty XG player the whole season at 4.8. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell you that, to not believe your lying eyes. I'm not saying that. It hasn't been good enough. And we can't do this thing, by the way. Phil said this. We shouldn't infantilize this player. Don't show screenshots of one run he made where someone didn't make the perfect inch forward pass to play him. Like, I get it. There are probably a few moments he could be played in. It doesn't excuse the fact that he's probably not at the level he'd like to be at either. So the team and the player can do more together, Clive. Let's not infantilize him by pointing to like a single screenshot of a moment and say, well, if he had just been played in here, you can do that for every player.
I mean, I just saw something online where they're saying Gyökeres' heat map, he's got his hand on his head, flicking his hair, and so people will say whatever they want to say, right? And but if we have a more in-depth discussion, there is a discussion to have about what is an Arsenal centre forward. because what are the best type of centre forwards that play in our team? And it has not proven to be an Eddie or a Gyökeres style centre forward.
I know what you mean. Yep.
And
that is
how,
a great question.
And how we combine that centre forward with the player behind him, how we combine that centre forward with the people associated him in wide areas. That is the discussion we need to have. I've tried to have this discussion, but people are not ready for it yet. But it's okay, because it will become clear quite quickly. The best centre forward I've seen in Arteta's time has been Kai Havertz. And I saw it from the very first time I saw him in the Community Shield, because he is tactically adept to do everything that we need on the pitch at any given time, and we don't have to substitute him. If we need to do false nine, he can do it. If we need to go into right pockets, he can do it. Left pockets, he can do it. He can go over the top, and he can be first phase in the air, 6'4". He solves the most problems. When we have one layered centre forwards, then we feel we're playing with 10 men on occasions. And because we're wired to have a team of midfielders almost, but that can be strikers if you see me. Jesus is a centre forward winger. Where does he find himself all the time? Back post. I wish he didn't find himself on the back post in the last second of the game, by the way. Where does he find himself? In the half space, so he can turn around and become a winger. But that's worked for us on occasions. High touch, technical player that can look after the football. But when we want to find him, we can't find him. We don't know where he's going to be, so we don't get continual play. So we have a discussion to have about what an Arsenal centre forward is. I'm not sure we're ready. That conversation is a good one, right? We should maybe have it.
There's also a correlation and causation problem, because people are going to say he started 16 games and we're 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League. So it's obviously working. That is a correlation, not equaling causation problem, which is he doing something that, if you really look carefully at it, is a big reason for our success? Or are we having success despite not getting enough from our striker? And I suspect people will have their own personal answer to that. But one thing that did surprise me in this game, Paul, and it surprised me a bit, I think Mikel Merino has actually shown that he's learned how to be a striker at Arsenal. I think last season we overstated how good he was at striker. I don't think our performances were particularly good. He just popped up with good goals. But this season, some of our best performances came with Mikel Merino in that position. And this was a game where we probably need, especially in the second half, when we stopped winning second balls and we weren't winning duels and we weren't, able to get territory back in the game. An off-ball striker didn't really strike me as what we needed. And I realized we brought on Jesus, who can be on ball as well and can play almost as a midfielder as well. But I really felt in a sloppy game, in a rainy game, on a windy night, it surprised me that we didn't want Mikel Merino's presence up front there. Are you surprised Mikel has kind of just made Jesus and Gyökeres the platoon at striker now and gone away from Merino, who, to his great credit, I think has made himself an option as one of our best center forwards, and maybe for the conditions in the game on offer would have been a good choice last night.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Look, it tells us probably what we know is common sense, which is, despite Arteta's words, he sees Mikel Merino as a midfielder that he's going to have to use in midfield this season.
Do you think it matters that he's bad in midfield? Don't yell at me. I'm trying to delete it.
I nearly bit my tongue off.
Leave it.
I would say about the midfield stuff, a lot of the midfield he's asked to play is not we're always asking him to play midfield when we're in trouble, right? When players are missing or whatever. So I'd like to see more of the midfield where he's the left 8 and the team around him is strong. But of course, that means you don't have Rice. So I'm never going to be happy with him in midfield, because the games he should play to show himself off are the ones where we're otherwise strong, but Rice isn't available or Zubimendi isn't available. And then the other kinds of games he plays in midfield is because we're really up the Swanee and he's playing right 8 or right, filling in for Odegaard. So it may just be his career at Arsenal. Anytime he's playing midfield, it's because we're in a little trouble selection-wise and we don't get to see the best of him. As a striker, we would have lost nothing by not starting him versus Gyökeres. Clive makes a great point on, what's the best striker for a Mikel Arteta team, and we've seen Havertz. I think I can actually make bring us all together on this, which is the perfect striker is Kai Havertz, but with great finishing. Now, Kai Havertz is an okay finisher. He's a kind of, if he has enough volume of chances, he does well. But like, imagine Kai Havertz with like Van Persie-esque finishing, or even Mikel Merino-esque finishing. You'd have absolutely the perfect striker for Arsenal. Now, he's a very, very good striker, and this isn't a diss on him. His finishing's okay for a guy who isn't a pure striker. But like that movement, that energy, that ability to drop short, to run in behind, the legs on him, the height, just a little more finishing in those boots. And like, you stop asking what's the right striker to be in an Arsenal team. And like, lots of people are happy with Kai Havertz as a striker, but lots of people think they'd like more. That would be just a more finishy Kai Havertz. Now, there's not many great strikers out there. I mean, that was part of the problem this summer. So you can't dial it into the magic striker machine and one pops out Kai Havertz, but with Mikel Merino's left foot. But I see Clive waggled his finger. So
no, I just think when I look at Arsenal in that centre forward position, I think we're just used to people that are intelligent, that can connect with the people around them. You know, and what I see Gyökeres at the moment, I think he lacks a little bit of game intelligence. And so the IQ of him isn't high. He has some physical attributes and some power attributes that have been nullified a little bit more in the Premier League. But what he really had was real sprinting power, and that's what I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing the relentless movement side to side to really challenge people, move people around. Is that the coach? I don't think so. I think it's on him. The space was there, particularly next to Van Dijk. Run there. Now, one thing I did hear from listening to people in Portugal, that when he thinks he can bully a centre-back, he really goes for him. But what I need to hear the rest of that sentence was, what happens when he doesn't feel he can bully a centre-back? Does he lose a bit of confidence to actually do it? And I felt in this game that Konate and Van Dijk had his number, and that was it. And but I don't think it was a game where we were going there anyway, you know. And but he showed behaviours where he lacked a little bit of confidence there, and he's struggling. I can see it. He's struggling, absolutely struggling. But I also can see that we need him, and I feel loath to throw him in the bin, even though that's a live question. You know, for many, it's a live question. I just don't want to, because I know we've got so many games to play, and I know we're going to need him on any given day. That combination of, I tell you, when we lost Merino to centre forward, it was Aston Villa, and he was dropping into areas where Odegaard was standing, remember? Which was absolutely fine until Odegaard came back. And since he got whipped off at half-time in that game, he has not played forward since. So it's about your combination. The Eze-Merino combination was really, really good. Right in a lefty, double tens, double nines, whatever you want to call, really, really good. The Odegaard-Gyökeres is the next pair, right? Could be the main pair for some people. But is it really operating as a pair? Are we seeing the best of them two together? The pair I want to see one day, and I don't care whether it's from the left or from the 10, is I want to see Havertz and I want to see Eze connection together. Because when you have somebody that's more facilitating front man, you need somebody behind who's a scorer. So if Gyökeres is a scorer, you need a facilitator behind him. Odegaard's a facilitator. Odegaard's become even a scorer in recent weeks and a real assister. So I think it's about finding that balance. Hence why I'm really excited about the next 3 weeks. I don't think we've found our balance in the forward areas yet. The 9 and 10 balance is not where it should be for me. Doesn't mean I'm right. You know, but I think I'm my biggest worry, my biggest barrier to success this season is our ability to score well-created first goals.
Yeah.
And that's when set pieces are saving my backside. You know, that's what, because I think we can do that anywhere we like. We are confident doing that. That first goal is the key for us. Sorry, Elliot, that first goal is the key. So I'm looking for that 9 and 10 balance. I am not feeling that at the moment. And the best moments I've had has been with Merino and Eze, I'm afraid, this season. That's where I am.
Yeah, well, I think what we can agree is whether people agree or disagree with some of the things you just said, what everybody will likely agree with is the the combinations are still being determined. The alchemy is still being figured out. I don't think anybody would say we're in our final form and understand exactly what we want from the way we attack the opposition. And so people can land on different potential solutions. None of them are the sure thing answer right now.
No.
So it's okay to be in the lab a little bit. We are still in the lab. It's a little weird to be in the lab 21 games in, but that's where we are. So, Paul, I said this last night in the instant reaction. I want to say it again because I think it is important. I know people sometimes get frustrated when I do throat clearing, but I'm going to do a little bit here. When you talk about a teenage academy player, I think it is important to modulate the degree of the critique you express and the way you express it. I think a teenage academy player should have a little extra grace and a little extra time and a little extra patience for the way they're discussed. But you should also say what you see, right? So I think finding that balance is important. I think the Nketiah injury was a big moment in this game. And I think that Miles' introduction destabilized us in a lot of ways. I think Liverpool started to realize they had a way to attack us that was effective with Frimpong running at Miles, and that maybe caused us to be even deeper, although I accept we were deep to begin with that. We had 25 or 29% possession in the first 25 minutes of the second half. We had no shots until the 91st minute. None in the second half. Not on target, no shots, period. But the moment that really stood out for me that was so uncharacteristic of Miles was when he had the ball under no pressure and passed it laterally into midfield, just right to Liverpool. And that was a concerning moment of just a lack of composure in a pressurized game. He had some actually half-decent moments up the pitch where we know he can influence it. But right now, his instincts at fullback seem to be a bit off. And so I wonder if you feel that introduction was a particularly significant moment in the game and the way the balance of the game worked for the next 30 or so minutes.
Yeah, it was not great timing because they'd already established that their one way to get at it was Frimpong, basically. And Nketiah had done okay against him, but there were a couple of times you saw the speed mismatch between those, and Nketiah looks pretty fast to me. So it was kind of Anthony Elanga, Frimpong. If they get a run at you, they're going to flame you, and you're going to have to find a way to contain it. And we mostly had with Nketiah and Gabriel covering his back. So it had been okay. And then you see the injury in the MLS coming on. I'm like, my first thought was, how fast is MLS? I don't think he's as fast as Nketiah.
No.
And you mentioned the pass into midfield to nobody, which tells me one of two things. Either his confidence is low or mentally, surprise, surprise, he was not expecting to step into that game at that point, which is kind of reasonable, but it's probably the two things together. Or if he thought he was going to play a role, he thought it would be later on. He wasn't ready. And because that should have been the part of the game he was okay at. I think the other thing that was, again, maybe concerning was having got flamed by Frimpong. He wasn't quite sure where to stand as a full back then. And Gabriel was pointing to him to tell him where to stand, etc. And he was kind of, didn't want to stand too close, but too far away. He was a little lost about what to do positionally while we were in a shape to defend against them. So he just looked a little lost, a little like confidence is not what it was for him. He had one moment. Well, he had two moments in attack. There was one where he spun his guy, classic Lewis-Skelly, kind of in midfield, spun his guy, created a little space, got the ball to Martinelli, and created quite a good situation. Then there was another one where Martinelli had the ball, and Lewis-Skelly was making the run kind of diagonal out to the left, and he didn't put enough mustard on his run to get into a good spot. So it was like one moment which showed me again that his confidence on the pitch is not where it was, because had he made a more decisive run, he would have got clear and Martinelli could have got it to him.
Yeah.
So really kind of all three aspects of his game were he's a bit off it and needs to be protected right now, I think. Yep. Unfortunately, if Nketiah is injured.
He is. There's some news breaking that they suspect a hamstring strain, which, could be 21 days, could be longer. The thing I will say is that Miles was probably in line to start the Portsmouth game and maybe even the Chelsea League Cup game. So it's a chance for him to get some run at the position and hopefully rediscover some of the form that he had been displaying last season. Clive, I was a little frustrated with Mikel's substitutions in this game and the substitutions patterns.
Ooh,
now, that's kind of
about Miles. I was going to tell you why he's struggling.
Well, I do want to ask you about Miles. I just want to ask you one thing super quick because it relates to the Miles substitution. Nketiah got injured on 57 minutes and comes off. It's 57 minutes, 60 minutes usually around when you make some subs.
Yeah.
So Mikel has to use a sub window on that injury change.
Mm-hmm.
6 minutes later, he makes another double sub. Like, I really felt that was an opportunity to just fire off all those subs in that moment. Now, the one thing I don't know is were the players warm enough to get on? They had been warming the whole second half, but I hated that. I thought Mikel should have made all the subs in that window. He would have had an extra window late in the game too if he wanted to bring on a Mikel Merino late in the game or something like that. He wound up using that window only for Miles, which I thought was weird.
Yeah, I suppose when an injury happens and you have to react, I don't think Miles was quite ready to play, to be honest with you. Took him a while to get going. One thing I do see from my seat, Elliot, is the substitutes and Mikel Arteta and the left back in the second half coming towards the North Bank. I've got a very good view of what happened in this game. When Miles came on, the first thing he did is when he approached the winger, the towards a fullback, you got to decide what you're going to do. You got to get tight really, really quickly and take the line away. That's the phrase we talk about. He didn't do that. Didn't get tight, and he'll skip past. Then he was pop passing on 1-2. So now he's in the running races that he doesn't want to get into. That's all about hesitancy. But Miles' core game is that he's really good in the contest, in the duel. Think back to last season on the back post against Haaland when he basically threw him over his shoulder. Think back what he did to Morgan Rogers for Villa last season when he basically bodied Morgan Rogers. And Morgan Rogers is as strong as anybody in you can think of, and he put him on the floor. Right? So can you see Miles doing that right now? You can't even imagine it, can you? You can't even imagine what would happen to him because he's lost a bit of that contest, that one-on-one ability, that dueling ability. So when you have a young player like that, you have to rebuild his game. So what you're talking about are the things you can see with your eyes, the actions. Then you say to yourself, okay, how do I rebuild this player? The first thing I need you to do is to get tight. Remember when Calafiori was coming in slow into challenges and getting turned and running backwards? Nobody wanted him to be at left back last season.
Yeah. Now
we're missing him. Why? Because he's much more front-footed. He's bouncing. He's there before the ball gets there. He's intercepting. And that's the core of his game. Neither of them are sprinters, but they don't allow sprinting to be an issue because they're already ahead of the game. Right? So Miles needs to get himself back to the intercepting, the dueling, the one-on-one, being tight. When he's tight and in contact, you know what he is? When he receives the ball then and turns out, he becomes a midfielder. When you're slow to get into the ball, when you're hesitant, what you are is a fullback. And he's not a core fullback. He's a midfielder fullback that needs to play the contest like a midfielder so he can bring his attributes to his game to the ball. Right? So that's his problem at the moment. Hesitancy, maybe a little bit of fear, wondering, I don't let the team down. I'll just stand in my hole here. You can't be like that. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to drive. You've got to get there quickly. And you've got to have that authority. And so he's fighting for his game. He really is. And I thought you spoke really well on his reaction last night, Elliot. I thought you spoke really well about this subject. He's 19 years of age. He may have had 50 first-class games. I can't believe we can all see he's struggling, but he's one of us, right? He's one of our family, and he's a kid. And I think this is the time where you need to support people, you know, rather than kill people. Because I tell you now, Calafiori's injured, Nketiah's injured.
A couple weeks at least.
Right?
Yeah.
Ben White just come back from injury. So you tell me what we're going to do, right? So it's very important that he's part of the show.
The only thing I would say, right, is we also have a responsibility for the analysis to be clear-eyed. And what I would say is at the moment, and these things can change, I don't know that Miles is in a position with his game where we can reliably use him at left back in the big moments. We're trying to win the Premier League and maybe the Champions League. So what I'm hoping is that the Portsmouth game, the Chelsea game in the League Cup, these games that are coming up, Kairat Almaty, Inter, games that are actually quite low stakes for us. It depends on how you think about the League Cup, but lower stakes for us are an opportunity for Miles to get back to being on the front foot, back to being aggressive in the challenge, back to getting touch tight with his man. Because what I do think, if you're a natural fullback and you played fullback since you're 6 years old and you don't play games for a while, you come back in and you're a fullback. If you're naturally a midfielder and you've been trained to be a midfielder since you're 6 years old and you play a little bit of fullback at the back half of a season and you find some form and then you're out of the team again, it's hard to get back into that contest. And especially in the middle of a contest when players are in the rhythm and the intensity of the game and you're not. And the thing about Miles also, he's mostly playing fullback as a sub right now. And I think that's a really hard job because you are coming into a game totally disconnected from its intensity and its pace and the rhythm and the dynamics. You just don't have time to get going. The first thing that happened when he came on the pitch, the very first thing, he comes on in the 57th minute, 58th minute, Frimpong takes him on, beats him, and it's out for a throw after the cross is blocked. And it's like, boom, you're in it now, buddy. Yeah. Your head's spinning and the game's going and you have no time to come
sorry,
to
Elliot, the way you asked me the question, just to go back to it, you about the substitution windows.
Yeah, I am curious.
From the moment when he got done on those first two, and there might have been a third one later on, and then he settled down and took the line away and suddenly got Frimpong's head down and he started to go backwards, right? But they were really exited on that side. The moment he got skipped, I'm thinking, get Martinelli on. I thought straight away, get him on. Within 2 minutes, because we need to change the emphasis to get Frimpong to come backwards, because Trossard had stopped, and we needed a sprinter on there. Martinelli would have been our exit, and you take the man away by putting on another attacker. So for me, the moment he got done, I looked at the substitutions, and they were up, mate. They were up, ready to come on, warming up quickly. So that 10-minute gap felt normal to me. You know, I wish I could have compressed it. They're already warm, but I could see it. The first one caught them out. The second one was a necessity change, probably booked with Gyökeres. But Martinelli was the exact player to bring on in that situation, knowing Saka would come up on the other side. So it made sense, Elliot, to me. And I wish we could have done it a little bit sooner, but it didn't cost us anything.
Yeah. Paul, the substitutions, this is a hard thing, right? Me, Elliot, a moron, saying I don't like the substitutions of Mikel Arteta, a certified footballing prodigy and genius, seems silly. But I can only tell you what I thought, and also with the benefit of hindsight. So obviously, first of all, I thought it was a little weird he didn't use the substitution window with the injury because he would have retained an extra substitution window late in the game if he wanted. I mean, there were a few things. Martinelli coming on, obviously, I think makes plenty of sense. Jesus, I don't know if I've been as convinced by him, but it's clear he's in the pecking order ahead of Merino. We've covered that. I would have liked Eza to come on for Leo in this particular game, in this situation. I think there were reasons to think that Eza off the left, able to come in and combine and get into central spaces and give us a little more presence there instead of a runner, might have been better in this situation. The way the game was going. The other thing that really just jumped out at me, I understand Bukayo Saka was not having his best game. I thought he had a pretty good first half. Everything we created came through him for the most part, but second half a little bit absent. And I know Mikel has recently said they're managing his minutes right now. But I just don't take Bukayo Saka off in big games. I'm sorry. We don't win the Newcastle game if he's not on the pitch, and he wasn't having much of a game, and then he puts in a perfect ball. Maybe the corner delivery Nani puts in at the end is pretty good. Gabby probably should head that in. But I just want Bukayo Saka on the pitch. So a lot of weirdness. I would have had Merino on there for second balls. I would have had Eza on there for control. I would have made the subs during the injury window. I'm not saying I'm a better manager than Mikel. I'm just saying there might be nights where you'd want me on the touchline.
You can't make 8 subs, Elliot. You know that, didn't
you? You got 14 players on there, Elliot.
You can make 3 sub windows if you navigate them correctly. So I don't know, Paul.
Look, if you yank Raya, Salib, and Gabriel, we can do it.
We could have gotten a goal. They might have 2, though. No, okay. All kidding aside, what's your thoughts on the impact of the subs like Jesus and the idea of taking Saka off, things like that?
Well, you like the Martinelli sub, right?
No.
What?
That's not.
No, Clive nailed it.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that.
It was essential.
No, I'm just saying I didn't. I know again, me, certified idiot. I didn't like it. I wanted Eza.
But even as an idiot, you must be able to realize that Martinelli made all kinds of sense.
No, I'm just telling you my truth. I wanted Eza for Leo. I thought it was the perfect
moment.
But I'm talking
to you now, and we're discussing it.
Paul, the reason, let me actually defend it instead of just calling myself an idiot.
because of
we had 29% of the effing ball and 0 shots. We did not need Martinelli. We needed someone who could get on the ball and keep it, who could step into centralized. We needed Merino and we needed Eze. We needed to get control back. We were losing duels. We needed to win second balls. I actually thought Martinelli's cameo was fine. I thought Jesus was much more of a net negative. But to me, I think I am sort of perplexed that we've seen Eze play left wing for 45 minutes this season. That's basically it. And I think that this was a game where it would have made sense to help us compete with the extra midfielders they had on the pitch. I didn't like it. But again, it's very easy for me to say I didn't like it because I got to see the end result. In the moment, it's not like I was like, well, that's a terrible sub. What's he doing? Jesus and Nelly seemed like the natural next men up. I'm just not sure I liked it for the situation and the elements and the game that was on offer. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
There, I've defended my shitty position. Now you.
Well, Clive did a great job talking about Martinelli, and I think he nailed it. Like, MLS needed him. What's more, given the game we had, which was at that, we needed to take the game down the other end. And guess what? It started to move down the other end. And Martinelli was doing well driving from midfield, beating a player, and taking it down the other end. I thought that part of it was pretty good. And, like, I'm not saying he had a brilliant game, but he had a good game. He put in some dangerous crosses. He beat guys on the edge of the box, went to the byline. Not huge volume, but reasonable volume. And he was up for it. We can talk about incidents in the game, but he was definitely mentally keyed up to make a difference. And I think he did. I think the other thing is Trossard is the player you're asking for in terms of like, you can say he wasn't brilliant, but like that was the game that was there to be had for a higher touch left winger. And I don't think Eze would have been any more high touch than Trossard in that situation. And I think he would have been disappeared a little bit into invisibility, given what was working for them was they had 4 midfielders who were by that stage feeling it. He would have had Szoboszlai on his side, pounding him. I think the physical mismatch, like what you're hoping to see with Eze, is to magically suddenly connect all our attack. And like their midfielders were dominant. They had 4 guys who are good on the ball. I mean, 3 of them won the Premier League last year. They're very, very good midfielders, and they'd seen enough of the ball and had enough of the ball that their passes were connecting and ours still weren't. And I don't think I think there's a manager has a feel for something. He's on the sideline. He's got to live with it. And I don't think he thought Eze right then was a guy who was going to impose himself on that game and dominate possession and connect it all together. It's not really how I have pictured him for us. I think Martinelli was a forceful figure who drove us down the other end of the pitch. And as the game went on, those chickens for us started to roost a bit, and we got down the other end and started connecting some stuff, and we would have liked higher quality, but we actually got a corner or 2 down their end. I think it did drive us forward, and I just don't think there's a magic pill with Eze. There's the Jesus discussion. I think he's an actual striker who Mikel sees upside to, and therefore, you're right, he was the next one up. And Martinelli and Jesus, reasonable expectation they would connect and form patterns, and they did some of that, but not as much as we wanted. Like, they made, and like the Saka one, I'm like, okay, he's not playing well at the moment, but like you want him on the pitch towards the end, and I'm like, but that's the kind of trap that has you playing Saka 95 minutes on a day when he needs to get off because it's not his day. And the big team calls it and says, this ain't his day. I'm going to play Nani. And Nani was good. And Nani was a different threat for them. And Nani got to the byline in a way that Saka wasn't at that particular point. So when you lose, I'll say lose, right? But when it doesn't go your way,
you can say lose. Just to be clear, you could say lose. It's still a draw.
Yeah, all your subs get questioned when they don't. They all kind of worked, but not enough.
Yeah.
So they all get questioned.
And just so we're clear, none of the subs are like, what the hell was he thinking? Like, none of it was, it's just, I don't know. I thought they all felt kind of rote, if you know what I'm saying. Just kind of like, next man up, like for like, in the moments when they're sort of called, they felt just common sense.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why I'm criticizing common sense, but like maybe it was a night for different sense, Clive.
Yeah,
Am I winning yet?
I was encouraged by some of the substitutions because we weren't protecting anybody. We weren't saying to Saka, by the way, you stay on for 90 no matter what, mate. We got someone else who can do that bit, and he nearly won us the game, right? With some good play in Noni Madueke, who has deserved the minutes he's got. And Eze hadn't had any minutes recently, and he came on and he did one thing. I don't know how it came across on TV, Elliot, but he had to do a recovery run to do some defending, and he sprinted back to the halfway line and won the ball and laid it off. And I thought, the message has gone into you, mate. Defensively, I need to be switched on. And so I'm going to predict to you right now in the next 2-3 weeks, we're going to be talking about Eze. Because I think he's ready to really make an impact into this team. How he does it, I'm not so sure, but he's going to have a moment because he must be struggling with the fact that he's not playing. He's the number 10 for his club for the last 3-4 years. And every time he steps on the pitch and lifts his eyebrow, the ball comes towards him. And he's come to Arsenal and he's done what he thought was good. He's out the team, hasn't played, and he's wondering about his role, wondering about his off-the-ball ability. He's come into this group and I thought, let's see what you're like in this game. And although he took up some interesting positions because there was nowhere else to stand, I thought he started to show a spark of I'm coming back. And when I get a chance, I'm going to take it. You know, and sometimes you have to see those sparks and play them. So I think it's a really important 2-3 weeks for him because I think a top Eze has the magic moments, first goals that we need, that this team lacks. You know, and so I'm looking for that solution.
Yeah, it's a weird period now too, because like I said, we leave the Premier League behind for a bit with cups in the next 2 games before Forest away, and that Forest away game comes on the weekend when City will play the Manchester Derby. Whatever you want to say about Manchester United, you know, it's a derby game, so that'll be another big moment. And Forest, whatever you want to say about them, have been pretty resolute and difficult to score against, which is going to be the same kind of test that we have to find a way to answer. Chance for some fringe players to put themselves back in the thinking, I think. I guess before we get out of here, Clive, is there any need to discuss the Martinelli thing? I do want to say about the Martinelli thing, Arne Slot dismissed it. He said Martinelli seems like a good guy. It was another chance for him to say, we don't fake injuries because we're Liverpool. Fine, whatever. I mean,
can we just say that was class of him? Right?
It was class, yes. Because he could have
pure.
thrown gas on the fire. In fact, Slot also said their performance wasn't very good. He was sort of like, we had a lot of the ball in the second half. We didn't create much. They didn't create much. It was a nothing game, which Slot's biggest issue is he's very honest. And you know, that doesn't do you any favors, but he was very honest. I think what he said about Martinelli was helpful because it took the gas off the fire. Martinelli apologized to Connor Bradley. And I mean, obviously the media wants to whip this up because they have no talking points from the game and there's nothing particularly interesting to talk about. And so for them, if they can get clicks out of this, they will. To me, I mean, Big Gabby, Gabriel Magalhaes, tries to pick Florian Wirtz up off the box earlier in the game when he's down, quote unquote, injured. Like, it is the case that we see this multiple times a game. Connor Bradley did roll back on the pitch. What Martinelli did wasn't good. I didn't like it. I don't think it was the right thing to do. I don't think you should do it. It's also obviously not a big deal. He apologized to Bradley. It just so happens that Martinelli got unlucky in this case, that Bradley was genuinely injured as opposed to
the bastard was just actually injured for a change.
Right. So Clive, like, to me, it's put to bed. Nelly apologized. Slot washed it away. It's put to bed. Is it put to bed for you or no?
No, I think he should be putting some stocks, and throw tomatoes at him. So, yeah, he was a little bit immature and silly in that situation, and that's it. But he's just a kid, right? He's not a nasty kid. Football people know who the nasty ones are, and he's not one of them. And Slot recognised it straight away. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was brilliant after the first game when they beat us, when he said 8 times that's a draw and 1 time each they win. And I thought it's just a game that was completely misread by the media. And this one, another one, I thought he managed it well. But there was an undercurrent of Liverpool players hitting the floor. So, but actually, I think they were a little bit injured. So the Frimpong one in the first half when he stepped on Hincapie's foot and he did twist his ankle. I didn't see that in the ground. I saw it this morning. I thought, he did have a little tweak on his ankle. But, you know, in the ground, if he can get up, mate, Do you know what I mean? And then before halftime, McAllister and the Odegaard, the big bruiser, knocked McAllister down. McAllister takes his time getting off the floor just for halftime. It's what you do. Settle the game down before halftime. Can we get in at 0-0? Let's not pretend Liverpool are any different than any other team in the world. You know, when you have a situation you want to calm it down, you take everything you can. And then you had the Wirtz one going down. So there was an undercurrent in the game of, we know Liverpool want to slow this game down, even though, by the way, they are 14 points behind us. You know, could you imagine it if we went to Anfield 14 points behind and then were basically had no shots on target? What a discussion will be. It won't be about Martinelli.
I know what the discussion would be, because we went to the Etihad and played for a draw where that kept the title in our hands, and we were called cowards.
Exactly. So what we have to do, you're absolutely right, Elliot, what we have to do is focus on what we need to do. We should basically win. Because until we win, and win the way the media want us to win, which is, can you give us a big game on a Thursday night when we're giving you the game, the whole country to watch you? Can you do that? Please don't look at the whole season as a whole. Can you win in the way we want you to win? Win all the big games, win all the other games, and just win. You know, and that's it. And so we have to stay to our course, how we want to do it. I didn't enjoy the game, I'll be honest with you, Elliot. I didn't enjoy it, but I enjoy it almost all the others. Right, so I'll take this one and put it away.
I enjoy being 6 points clear after 21 games. I will say this. This reaction to the Martinelli thing reminds me of when Pundit said after Cesc was accused of spitting, I'd rather have my leg broken than be spat on. Do you remember that? I can't remember which pundit was said. I'd rather have my leg broken than be spat on. It's the same kind of thing, because I'll tell you what Liam Delap did to Kusanov when he pushed him into the hoardings off the pitch is way worse than what Martinelli did to Bradley. The things that can actually injure a player, what Caicedo did to Merino, the things that can actually injure a fellow professional are way worse than the things that are just a little bit humiliating or disrespectful. This was disrespectful and it wasn't necessary, but it caused him no danger. Yeah. We see players endanger fellow professionals all the time, and that's the shit that should get the outrage. What Liam Delap did to Kusanov, what Caicedo did to Merino, that's the stuff that should get the outrage, not this.
Yeah,
can I add
no,
Paul,
we have to stop. We have to stop. We're at our stopping point. We're stopping. There'll be another podcast, I promise.
I'll say it really quick.
Can you move your hands away from the mic then?
Yeah. He's lying on the sideline. He moves onto the pitch from there. He could have moved off the pitch. It's actually his responsibility, if he's able to move, which he is, to move off the pitch.
Every pro would move on the pitch.
Every pro should move on the pitch.
Would.
Yeah. He did Connor Bradley did the right thing. Martinelli did the wrong thing. Yeah. But it's not that big a deal.
Okay.
The reaction is
Martinelli was silly. But if we're going to talk about doing the right thing, actually the right thing was Connor Bradley moves off the pitch. That frustrated our player who was silly about it.
I appreciate your commitment to this.
Arne Slot was class.
Yes.
And took the heat
out of it. We are the only class institution. I agree with you. I think we should leave it there. We do have Pompey on Sunday. That should be a fun game. It'll be a really interesting lineup. Mikel, play all the kids, please. Okay? We do want to win the FA Cup.
What kids?
So, we don't even have any
They're all
kids.
playing.
Yeah, they're all playing, true. Play whoever you can, who we don't need for the next game, which is another game that we also don't need. I'm kidding. It's 2 cup games in a row. Then it's Forest on Saturday. So we go Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. We'll have a lot of pods for that. Check out the Rob Holding interview. Rice50 is the code if you want to do that for a couple quid. You can check out Paul and I giving dumpster emojis to crappy teams, which they deserve, which is not us, because we are, and I cannot emphasize this strongly enough, 6 points clear at the top of the table after 21 games. You would have taken it. You should still take it. It's still wonderful, even if we're frustrated with last night, which we are. That's it. That's enough. Paul, thank you.
Woohoo!
I've got this back on the rails and ended it finally. Thank you, Clive.
Just one last thing. I'm only joking. Thank you very much.
My name is Elliot Smith. Please do block me wherever you can find me. It's probably for the best, so you don't have to engage with or encounter my opinions. But I do love you, and I want you to know how much I appreciate you being here. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10.